Hi there, I'm Yvette and I'm a neuroscientist, and today I would like to share with you this video containing 5 key advice tips that I encountered while reading this book, Deep Work by Cal Newport. These key points helped me obtain my PhD in 4 years, but also to obtain funding, writing of 2 manuscripts as the lead author, and also finding the motivation to write a thesis. When I started my PhD, I thought that this journey will be like a master thesis of 6 months for 8 times. However, this couldn't be further from the truth. While doing your master thesis, a lot of your time is dedicated to actually doing the experiments. However, when you're doing your PhD, you have to transition from doing and you start to actually think more. Mind you, you still have to spend time doing the actual experiment. Otherwise, you don't have any results. But in your PhD, you have to dedicate more time than initially thought for tasks such as writing, experiment design, and also troubleshooting. And all of these tasks require you to achieve one important thing, which is a state of thinking. And trust me, it is easier said than done. Our environments are designed to distract us all the time. However, remember, it's useless to go as fast as you can if you're not taking the right direction. So, having said this, let's delve into the 5 tips that I distilled by reading the book Deep Work. Advice number 1. Not all work is created equally. So, in this book, Newport divides work into 2 categories, deep work and shallow work. And he mentions that we spend a lot of our time doing shallow work, such as answering emails or going for meetings. However, he mentions that in order for us to create something of value, we need to enter into a state of deep work. Unfortunately, deep work requires large, uninterrupted quantities of time, which in this day and age is very difficult to find. But in order for us to learn a new skill and also be good at it, we need to do deep work. Now, even more so, since the menial tasks can be taken over by artificial intelligence. While doing deep work, we are able to produce work of value. However, when we're doing shallow work, we are practically keeping ourselves busy as it is quite superficial. So, as you can imagine, it's not that shallow work is not needed. However, oftentimes, we spend more time than it is actually needed doing shallow work. In this book, it is mentioned that we often keep ourselves in this shallow world so that we can give the impression for ourselves and to the ones around us that we are in actual fact working. However, think about it. What will matter once you look back on your PhD? How often you were available via email? Or is it the papers, grants, and also experiments that we managed to be successful at? Yeah, probably the latter, right? So I hope that this is a wake-up call for you, so that you can identify the tasks part of the shallow world and reduce them in order to make more space for the deep, meaningful work. Advice number 2. Deep work is finite. Deep work is a finite resource, and in this book it is mentioned that a person has access to only 4 hours of deep work a day. So expecting more from your brain is a little bit too ambitious. So please do not beat yourself up if you're not managing to study or write for 14 hours straight. Doesn't seem that it's possible. Also, something which is important to remember is not to force yourself to do more deep work once this limit is reached. So when you're done with deep work, it is better to invest your time doing shallow work so that you can fulfill your other obligations. One important thing to take note of is that deep work is a skill, and like any other skill, it can be learned. In the beginning, the skill won't be amazing, so don't expect to have access to the full 4 hours from the start. However, over time and with training, you will become better at it for sure. So in order to be successful and achieve your full potential, you must master the art of deep work. Advice number 3. Ritualize deep work. Willpower is a finite resource, and unfortunately to start doing deep work, you need willpower. And actually, this is where most of us fail, because there's always some new shiny thing that is distracting us from doing the actual deep work. However, we have to find ways how to overcome this. According to Newport, one way how we can overcome this is to create a habit around deep work, as habits do not require willpower to be executed. For example, what you can do is that every time that you're going to start working on that manuscript, for example, you'll go and make a cup of coffee so that the brain starts to associate the coffee with entering a deep state of work. So then over time, once you start to do this, as soon as you have a cup of coffee and you're at your desk, your brain knows immediately that now it's time to write. So far the advice given was all about how to start doing deep deep work. However, something which is also super important and us scientists are really bad at it is basically to unplug. So another habit which is important to acquire is a shutdown ritual. So by having such a ritual, the brain learns that it can unplug after this. For example, a part of this shutdown ritual would be to write yourself a note of all the pending tasks that are required of you for tomorrow, so that the mind can let these thoughts go. Because after all, as much as work is important, taking time away from work is equally important. This downtime needs to take place as the brain needs to be replenished, and so it will ensure that we are ready for a fresh new day the next morning. So what this is actually telling us is to stop and resist those urges to check our emails in the evening at home, so that we can give ourselves a clean break. So a cool quote from the book is that when you work, however when you're done, be done. So if you see that you're forgetting this quote as the day goes by, just write it on a piece of paper and stick it to your desk. Advice number 4. Eliminate distractions. Distractions, no matter how small, disrupt deep work. And the rule of deep work is that a big chunk of time is worth more than the equal sum of smaller chunks of time. For example, 4 hours dedicating to writing are more worth than 8 slots of 30 minutes each. So if your lab is anything like mine and you need to do deep work, try to do home office or else find a nice quiet spot where you're not easily disrupted. To be honest with you, I had to do this in my PhD to be able to write my manuscripts and also my thesis. Otherwise, I don't think that I would have been able to graduate in time. Another thing which is mentioned, however usually it's not considered as a distraction, is multitasking. Over here I have to admit that I am a serious offender of this, and actually I'm trying to learn from my mistakes. However, in this book, Cal Newport writes that jumping from one task to another does not help with our concentration. And in actual fact, when we go from task A to task B, parts of our brain are still stuck and thinking about task A. This attention residue stops us from working at our full potential and acts as a distraction. I know it is easier said than done. However, try it out and you will realize how much better your brain can work when it's not jumping from one task to another. Advice number 5. Restrict the amount of projects you take on. When I was doing my master project, my supervisor at the time told me that by being everywhere, you're gonna be nowhere. And I have to admit, at that point in time, I was really confused by it and I didn't quite understand it. I was an ambitious master student who was hungry to learn any experimental method I could put my hands on. However, now that I do understand what he meant, I treasure those words greatly. And practically what he meant was that the more you try to do, the less you will accomplish. And I think this is a very important piece of advice for a young scientist. There will always be a cool collaboration around the corner, or else a new project that your supervisor tells you that you need minimal work in order to get to a paper. However, at the end of the day, everything will take time and you have to be realistic with what you can do with the time you're given. So in the book Deep Work, it is recommended that you select a small number of ambitious goals and you follow through. Trust me, your future self will thank you for this. So these were the main 5 key points that I took from the book Deep Work. I hope that you got some value out of this video, and if the points mentioned today resonated with you, I recommend that you go and read the book itself, as he gives more detailed advice over there. If you liked the video itself and you would like to support the channel, I would highly encourage you to hit the like and subscribe button. And if you want to share your experience with achieving deep work, maybe you want to share more tips or so, just share them with us in the comments down below. So thanks a lot for watching, and see you next time.